Imagine facing the unknown after death, armed with a guidebook written not by human hands, but, well, by the very gods themselves. What profound secrets would such a guide reveal?
Hmm.
What truths about life, about death, and the very essence of your being would it lay bare for you?
It's a powerful image.
It really is. Today, we're taking a deep dive into an extraordinary collection of ancient texts, a compilation often referred to as the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
That's right. And it's crucial to understand from the outset that this isn't a single book in the modern sense, like a novel you'd pick up or a holy scripture with a fixed canon.
Right, not like the Bible or the Quran.
Exactly. Instead, it's a vast compilation, a sprawling library, really of spells, prayers, hymns, and very specific instructions. Each element was meticulously designed to guide the deceased through the perilous journey of the underworld and toward the promises of eternal existence.
How?
It offers us a truly unparalleled window into ancient Egyptian cosmology and their deepest beliefs.
And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the core concepts, the fascinating ideas, and, frankly, some truly surprising insights contained within these ancient writings.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
We're going to explore what the Egyptians believed about the very nature of the self, the detailed journey to the afterlife, the formidable challenges one might face along the way, and ultimately the serene destination they hope to reach. We'll try to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge from these incredibly complex sources, delving into its historical evolution, the intricate relationship between text and image.
Which is key.
Absolutely, and the profound moral and magical underpinnings that made this work so powerful. So let's unpack this and truly begin our journey.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start right where we should, with the name itself, the Book of the Dead. It sounds, well, rather ominous, doesn't it? Maybe a bit morbid.
It does, yeah.
And it's actually a modern misnomer, isn't it? When we hear book today, we think of a singular defined text. But this ancient Egyptian collection was anything but that.
Precisely. It is indeed a modern invention, that term. It was given by early Egyptologists. And far from being a fixed canon, it was, as you said, a dynamic collection of funeral texts, spells, hymns.
More like a toolkit.
Kind of, yeah. Think of it more as a flexible compendium, a vast reservoir of options from which individual copies were assembled. Each Book of the Dead was essentially custom-tailored for the deceased.
So personalized for their journey.
Exactly, making it a deeply personal guide for their unique journey into the afterlife. What's truly telling is that the Egyptians themselves never used that title.
Really? What did they call it?
Their original titles always emphasized a positive outcome, something like Chapters of Coming Forth by Day or The Book of Going Forth by Day.
Coming forth by day, that's completely different.
Isn't it? The profound emphasis was always on emergence into the light, on rebirth, and on eternal, vibrant existence, not merely on the act of dying.
That transforms it immediately, from something morbid to, well, a manual for triumphant spiritual navigation.
That's a great way to put it.
And what's particularly fascinating, as you noted, is that this wasn't a static document, unchanging through time. It constantly evolved, adapted, and grew over millennia. Where do we first see these beliefs begin to take textual form?
Well, the very earliest glimpses of these kinds of funerary beliefs and practices actually predate the dynastic period, stretching way back to the earliest phases of Egyptian civilization.
Before the pharaohs, even.
Yes. We find evidence in sites like the oval graves at El Amra near Abydos. These ancient burials contain skeletons that showed traces of early embalming substances.
Ah, so mummification started really early.
In its very nascent forms, yes, suggesting that even in the dawn of their society, Egyptians believed in a beneficial afterlife and began to take tangible steps to prepare for it.
That's an astonishingly long history. So, from these deeply ancient practices, how did these beliefs transition and blossom into the formalized texts we know today?
They truly blossom with what we call the pyramid texts. These are considered the oldest recension or version of these funerary writings.
The first edition, sort of?
Sort of, yeah. Often referred to as the Heliopolitan recension because they show clear influence from the priests of Anu, the ancient city known to the Greeks as Heliopolis.
Okay.
These powerful texts are found inscribed directly onto the internal walls of the burial chambers within the pyramids of the Old Kingdom pharaohs, from the 1st through the 4th dynasties.
Literally carved in stone.
Literally. They represent a significant development in religious and funerary ideas. For example, in the Pyramid of King Unas, who reigned around, 3300, 3166 BC.
Wow, that's old.
Incredibly old. And also in King Teti's pyramid, we find extensive excerpts covering the walls. While 5 sets of extracts have survived in a tolerably complete state, the texts themselves were originally practically illimitable.
Illimitable, meaning...
Meaning immeasurable, boundless in their scope, vast. It's also interesting to note the ancient custom of ascribing works of unknown authors to famous, venerable figures.
like giving it more weight.
Exactly, like attributing things to Herutataf, the son of King Khufu, who was renowned as a learned author. It imbued these texts with an air of profound ancient authority.
So these foundational pyramid texts were literally etched into the very stones of the royal tombs. What came next in this millennia-long evolution of funerary literature?
Right, so following the pyramid texts, particularly after a period of relatively scarce records from the 9th and 10th dynasties, we see the emergence of the coffin texts.
Coffin texts, makes sense.
Yes, during the Middle Kingdom, roughly the 11th and 12th dynasties, these texts, as their name suggests, were inscribed on coffins.
Okay.
They demonstrate a clear continuity of the core ideas from the pyramid text, but also a crucial adaptation. By inscribing them on coffins, these spells and instructions became far more accessible to a wider range of people beyond just the pharaohs.
So not just for royalty anymore.
Exactly, marking a significant democratization of the afterlife, as you said earlier.
And then, what many of us might recognize, the famously beautiful papyri from the New Kingdom era. This is where the illustrations, the vignettes, truly come into their own right.
Indeed. The Theban recension, prevalent during the New Kingdom from the 18th to 22nd dynasties, is arguably the most common and certainly the most richly illustrated version.
This is where we get those amazing images.
Yes, we're talking about iconic papyri like those of Ani, Nebseni, and Hunefer. The Papyrus of Ani, for example, is renowned for its exceptional artistic quality and the vividness of its depictions.
Just stunning works of art.
Absolutely. What's truly fascinating about Ani's papyrus and others of this period is that the artist's work, the vignettes, the illustrations, was often completed before the scribe even began writing the text.
Wait, the pictures came first.
Often, yes, which sometimes led the scribe to miscalculate space, forcing them to reduce the writing size or even, remarkably, write words on the colored borders of the illustrations.
That's incredible. It shows how important the images were.
It's a clear testament to the profound importance placed on the visual elements. The art wasn't just decoration, it was integral.
That's a unique insight into their creative process. So the art wasn't just an afterthought or a mere decoration. It was absolutely integral to the document itself.
Absolutely. Take the papyrus of Hunefer. Though comparatively brief at around 18 feet, it also showcases incredibly beautiful vignettes, especially its depiction of the pivotal opening the mouth ceremony.
Yes, we'll get to that ceremony later, I imagine.
We will. Hunefer's depiction is considered one of the most perfectly rendered examples known. This artistic emphasis continued to evolve, and we even see changes in quality over time.
How so?
For instance, in the 20th dynasty, the colors in the vignettes sometimes became cruder, and the delicacy of design deteriorated compared to earlier, more refined works like the New Papyrus.
So perhaps skills changed, or resources.
Possibly both. It likely reflects shifting artistic skills and perhaps even resource availability over time. Interestingly, the use of gold for illumination, adding a new layer of splendor, appears for the first time in these later periods.
Making certain elements truly shine. Literally.
Literally, yes. Highlighting key parts. Then we get the Saite recension in the 26th dynasty, characterized by a more standardized order of chapters. The Turin Papyrus, published by Lepsius in 1842, is the key example there.
Okay, so it became more structured later on.
Yes, and the tradition continued into the Greco-Roman and Roman periods, with texts published by scholars like Birch and Leiblin illustrating this later phase. Birch's 1867 translation of the Turin Papyrus was foundational, really, for later Egyptology.
Right, building the groundwork.
And Puret followed in 1882, Davis in 1894. Though interestingly, at the time the preface to our source material was written, there still wasn't a complete translation of the Theban recension available.
So we've traced this incredibly long, evolving history, from texts etched into pyramid walls to elaborate, illuminated papyri, with the visual element becoming increasingly paramount. But who was actually writing all of this? Was there a single human author, like a prophet, compiling these sacred words?
That's a critically important distinction. With the single historical exception of Herutufi, the son of King Khufu we mentioned earlier,
Right.
no human author or reviser is ever mentioned for any specific chapter within the Book of the Dead. These texts were overwhelmingly considered to be divinely authored.
Divinely authored by whom?
The god Thoth. He was revered as the divine intelligence, the celestial scribe of the gods, the meticulous chronologer of heaven and earth. He was consistently associated with their production and transmission.
The god of wisdom and writing.
Exactly. He is often referred to as the scribe of right and truth who abominateth sin, and the writing reed of the god Nebercher, the lord of laws, who giveth forth the speech of wisdom and understanding, whose words have dominion over the two lands.
Wow, that's quite a title.
It certainly is. Now, what's truly fascinating here, and a key insight into Egyptian belief, is how this concept of divine authorship differs so profoundly from many modern Western views.
How so?
While in many traditions, religious texts are attributed to human prophets or figures who receive divine revelation, maybe through an intermediary, here it's considered directly from a deity.
So, no middleman. Straight from the source.
Pretty much. This raises an important question for us. How might having a foundational religious text considered directly from a deity, rather than filtered through human hands, have shaped the ancient Egyptians' worldview and their approach to preparing for the afterlife?
It suggests an unchallengeable, perfect guide, doesn't it?
Exactly. Straight from the ultimate source of all knowledge, imbuing their journey with incredible certainty.
That's a powerful point. If the guide to the afterlife is literally divine, it lends an undeniable weight and certainty to their beliefs, which brings us beautifully to what the deceased actually aspired to in this afterlife. What was the ultimate goal for the ancient Egyptian individual?
Well, the primary aspiration for the deceased was to come forth by day, as the title suggests, to truly live after death, and ultimately to become a perfect coup.
A perfect coup. What does that mean?
We'll get into the coup as part of the self later, but essentially it's a perfected, shining spiritual form. This wasn't merely about survival in some dim, shadowy realm. It was about regaining incredible power.
Power. Like what?
The ability to perform wondrous transformations, enjoying absolute freedom of movement, entering and exiting the underworld at will, and even traveling with the great sun god Ra across the vast expanse of the sky.
So it wasn't just a shadowy, passive existence. It was envisioned as a vibrant, empowered, and incredibly active one.
Absolutely. Very dynamic.
And what about the more earthly comforts? Did they hope to bring those with them or replicate them in some way?
Oh, definitely. The texts express a very strong and tangible desire for continued nourishment. There are explicit prayers for cakes and ale and meat and cool water.
The essential.
The essentials, yes. They also yearn for material comforts, like owning fertile fields and abundant crops in the afterlife.
Like their own little farm in paradise.
Exactly. This reflects a profound desire for a continuation of their earthly lives, but in a perfected, idealized state. It highlights a very holistic view of the afterlife, where both spiritual power and physical enjoyment were sought.
It's clear they believed in a complex, rich existence after death. But the individual himself, the human being, wasn't just a simple body and a singular soul, was it? The Egyptians had a much more nuanced, multi-layered concept of the self.
Indeed. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of Egyptian belief, I think. Their concept of the individual was remarkably multifaceted, composed of several distinct yet intricately interconnected elements, far beyond a simple body-soul duality common in many other traditions.
Okay, so break it down for us. What were these parts?
Right. First, you have the Khat. That's the material, physical body.
The one that gets mummified.
Precisely. This physical form was understood to be prone to decay, hence the elaborate mummification process, which was absolutely crucial for its preservation. It's important to note, though, that the educated Egyptian never believed the material body would literally rise again in its original fleshy form.
Really? So what was the point of preserving it so carefully?
They understood that flesh and blood could not inherit immortality. The mummification wasn't about the physical body literally walking around again, but about preserving it as a kind of anchor or a necessary base for the other spiritual elements.
Okay, an anchor. So what emerged from this preserved body?
From the preserved Khat emerged the Sa. This was envisioned as the spiritual body. This was the form that would ascend to heaven and dwell with the gods.
The Sa, the spiritual body. Got it. What else?
Then there's the Ka. This is often translated as the spiritual duplicate, or double.
The double. Like a ghost.
Not quite like a ghost in our sense. It was more like the life force, the personality's essence that needed sustenance. This Ka was sustained through offerings made at chapels attached to tombs.
Ah, that's why they left food and drink offerings.
Exactly. The very existence of priests of the Ka demonstrates that this was a key and highly practical doctrine, ensuring the spirit double was nourished.
Fascinating. Okay, ka, sa, ka. What's
Or
next?
the Ba. This represented the soul, and it's often depicted in art as a human-headed hawk.
I think I've seen those images.
Very likely. The Ba had incredible mobility and freedom. It could eat offerings with the Ka, ascend to heaven to live with the sun god Ra, visit the mummified body in the tomb, and, remarkably, assume any form it pleased.
Wow, shape-shifting.
Essentially, yes. The papyrus of Nebquet even includes a beautiful vignette, an illustration showing the Ba flying down to the mummy with air and food, symbolizing its continued connection and vitality.
So the soul could transform and interact with both the divine and the preserved physical self.
Amazing. What other components made up this complex human being?
The ab, or heart, this was considered paramount.
The heart we saw weighed in the judgment scene. That's the one. It was believed to be the source of both life and all good and evil actions, the seat of thought, emotion, and conscience. Its preservation was so crucial that several chapters of the Book of the Dead were dedicated specifically to protecting it.
Makes sense, given its role in judgment.
Absolutely. Then you have the Ku, which we mentioned earlier. It's described as a shining or translucent covering of the spiritual body that dwelt in heaven. Think of it as your ultimate divine form, shimmering and powerful, allowing you to dwell among the heavens. It had a very close connection to the soul, the Ba.
A shining divine self.
Okay.
Another component was the sekhem. This word means form or statue, but also profoundly conveys power or vital force.
Power.
Yes. Egyptians conceived of this as the raw, vital energy that fueled the man's existence in the spiritual realm. In fact, gods themselves were often referred to as sekhemnu, or powers.
So your personal power or force?
Kind of like that, yes. Your inherent divine potential realized.
And a person's name was also vital, wasn't it? More than just a label. Critically so. The Ren, or name, was absolutely essential for continued existence. Egyptians took extraordinary precautions to preserve it.
Why was the name so important?
They believed that unless a person's name was preserved and uttered, they would cease to exist entirely. Total annihilation.
Wow.
So supplications were made for the name to flourish alongside the names of gods, and invocations inscribed on papyri specifically ensured the flourishing of the deceased's name for eternity. Finally, there's the kaibit, or shade shadow, another component of the self, though it's less detailed in our sources.
Khat, Sa, Ka, Ba, Ab, Ku, Sekhem, Ren, Kaibit. That's 8 or 9 parts.
At least. And what's truly a profound insight here is how this multi-part understanding of the self fundamentally reshaped their entire approach to the afterlife. It differs so greatly from many modern Western views that often focus on a simple duality of body and soul.
It certainly does.
It suggests a far more active and multifaceted preparation process for eternity. You weren't just preparing a single soul, but nurturing multiple distinct aspects of your being for their unique journeys and functions in the afterlife.
It definitely broadens the scope of what it means to be a complete being, even in death. Speaking of complex journeys and divine figures, a major figure in this entire process is Osiris. What was his central, pivotal role?
Osiris holds a central and profoundly relatable role. He is the god of the dead, yes, but more importantly, the prototype for resurrection.
Because of his own story. Right, the myth of his death and rebirth.
Exactly. His foundational story of suffering death, mutilation at the hands of his enemies, his body parts being scattered, and then meticulously reassembled by his devoted sisters Isis and Nephthys is key. This act led to his spiritual resurrection, which in turn granted him the singular power to bestow eternal existence upon his devoted followers.
So his own triumph over death became the blueprint, the very promise for everyone else who followed him.
Precisely. The deceased would explicitly claim in the texts that whatever was done by the gods for Osiris should also be done for him by them. It was a direct appeal, a promise based on divine precedent.
A sort of divine guarantee.
In a way, yes. While hymns to the sun god Ra often emphasized Ra's majesty and cosmic power as creator, the hymns to Osiris focused on his profound goodness to humankind and his personal relatability. His suffering, death, and triumphant return made him a deeply empathetic figure.
Someone people could connect with on a human level, despite being a god.
Exactly, offering a very personal path to eternal life for all who identified with him.
But Osiris wasn't the only major deity the deceased interacted with. Ra, the sun god, also played a crucial role in the cosmic journey of the afterlife.
Oh, absolutely. Ra was indeed the greatest of the cosmic gods, the embodiment of the sun and creation itself. The deceased often aspire to join him in his boat of millions of
The
years.
boat of millions of years. What a name.
Isn't it? Also known as the Sektet boat, or Eight boat. The goal was to journey with Ra across the sky, participating in the eternal cycle of day and night.
Becoming part of the cosmic rhythm.
Precisely. The hymns to Ra were filled with praise for his majestic rising and setting, his eternal journey, and his undeniable role as the creator and sustainer of all life. There's even mention in chapter CX of the 2 sycamore trees of turquoise from which Ra emerges each morning,
A beautiful image.
painting a vivid picture of his daily rebirth and the deceased's potential participation in it.
And connecting all of this, the master of words, the guide through the textual labyrinth, was Thoth. His presence feels omnipresent throughout the Book of the Dead.
Thoth is, once again, the divine intelligence, the meticulous scribe, and a crucial advocate for the deceased. He is portrayed as the deceased's indispensable helper.
How did he help, specifically?
By providing speech of wisdom and understanding, and his words literally have dominion over the two lands, meaning absolute authority. He is explicitly associated with helping to unloose the bandages in chapter 23.
We'll get to that ritual.
Yes, granting the power of speech and movement. And his connection to words of magical power in chapter CSE9 underscores the profound magical efficacy embedded within the Book of the Dead itself. His divine wisdom and magical prowess were truly the guiding light for the deceased.
So armed with this understanding of their multifaceted self and the benevolent guidance of these divine figures, the journey through the afterlife sounds pretty intense. And it all seems to culminate in one of the most iconic and pivotal images of ancient Egypt, the judgment scene.
You're absolutely right. Chapter CX6E, depicting the judgment scene, is perhaps the most central and certainly the most elaborate vignette in the Book of the Dead, first appearing prominently in the 18th dynasty.
And the setting.
The setting is the Hall of Mahdi, sometimes referred to as the Hall of the Double Mahdi, signifying both right and truth. Within this sacred hall, no fewer than 42 gods sit or stand in solemn judgment.
42 gods, that's a tough crowd.
It certainly is, and this is where the famous weighing of the heart takes place, the ultimate test.
Okay, explain the weighing. How did it work?
The symbolic significance here is profound and incredibly dramatic. The ab, or heart, of the deceased, believed to be the seat of their conscience and actions, is carefully placed in one pan of a massive balance.
And in the other pan?
In the other pan rests the feather of Mat, the goddess of cosmic order, truth, and justice. It serves as the emblem of right and truth itself.
So your heart against truth itself.
Exactly. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming and the underworld, meticulously tests the tongue of the balance, ensuring its perfect accuracy.
He's like the official ensuring a fair weigh-in.
Precisely. Thoth, the divine scribe, stands by, diligently recording the result of the weighing with his reed pen and palette, making sure every detail is noted.
The official record keeper.
And looming nearby, a terrifying figure ready to devour the heart if it fails the test, is the monstrous Amet.
Amet, the eater of the dead.
Chillingly known as the Eater of the Dead, yes. A composite creature, head of a crocodile, body of a lion, hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Pure terror.
The stakes literally couldn't be higher for the deceased. And what does the deceased have to say for themselves in this moment, facing these 42 formidable gods?
This is where the negative confession comes in, a truly remarkable section. Before the 42 gods, each representing a specific potential transgression, the deceased must declare their innocence.
Oh.
By reciting a litany of 42 specific sins they did not commit, this extraordinary declaration provides us with an incredibly detailed and comprehensive insight into the ancient Egyptian moral code.
So it tells us what they considered wrong.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about avoiding overt crimes, but about maintaining social harmony and personal integrity. For instance, the deceased would declare, "I have not done evil to mankind. I have not oppressed the members of my family. I have not done murder, nor given the order for murder. I have not defrauded the oppressed one of his property."
Covering major crimes. But what about smaller things?
Oh, yes. The confession also includes declarations against more personal and social transgressions like, "I have not committed fornication. I have not set my mouth in motion against any man."
Meaning gossip or slander.
Precisely. And "I have not given way to wrath concerning myself without a cause." It even gets specific about honesty and loyalty. "I have not defiled the wife of a man. I have not eaten my heart."
Eaten my heart. What does that mean?
It's generally interpreted as meaning I have not been consumed by grief, envy, or deceit. sort of an internal purity.
Interesting.
They also declared, I have not acted with deceit, and I have not worked wickedness, and even political loyalty. I have not uttered curses on the king.
That's an astonishingly extensive list,
No.
covering everything from interpersonal ethics to personal temperament and even political loyalty. What does this tell us about ancient Egyptian society, that their moral code was so comprehensive?
It tells us they had a deeply ingrained, all-encompassing sense of accountability and cosmic order, mat, that permeated every aspect of life.
Not that concept of balance and truth.
Exactly. It wasn't just about avoiding overt crimes. It was about maintaining a delicate balance in society and within oneself. This rigorous moral framework was seen as absolutely essential for success, not just in life, but crucially, for navigating and succeeding in the afterlife.
And the outcome of the weighing.
The outcome was stark. If the heart balanced perfectly against the feather of Ma'at, the deceased was declared true by trial, or true of voice, Ma'akaru.
Makaru, true of voice.
Yes. They were then granted meat offerings and, most importantly, entrance into the blissful presence of Osiris, effectively becoming an Osiris themselves, a being endowed with a spiritual body that could never again experience death or corruption.
And if it failed, if the heart was heavy with sin?
If it failed, they faced the terrifying fate of being devoured by Amet, meaning eternal oblivion, no afterlife, just gone.
So it's a moral and spiritual accounting of the highest order. But beyond judgment, the afterlife journey wasn't just about smooth sailing, was it? It was also fraught with dangers. Battling foes and overcoming obstacles seems to be a recurring theme.
Absolutely. The afterlife journey was envisioned as a perilous passage, teeming with dangers from various fiends, monstrous serpents, and other formidable obstacles. The Book of the Dead contains numerous specific spells designed precisely to protect the deceased from these threats.
Like what kind of spells?
For instance, chapters X and 12 are powerful spells explicitly against his enemies in the underworld, empowering the deceased to ensure their foes shall not escape their grasp.
Enemies in the afterlife. That sounds almost like a continuation of earthly struggles, but on a cosmic scale.
In a profound way, yes. There were very specific threats to contend with. Chapter Petal 1, for example, is dedicated to driving away crocodile.
Why crocodile specifically?
To repel these dangerous creatures that would attempt to steal words of power from the deceased, effectively disarming them spiritually. There's even that famous anecdote from the Westcar Papyrus about a magician animating a wax crocodile to punish adultery.
Right, showing the belief in tangible magic.
Exactly. Chapters 33 through Elysian focus intensely on repelling serpents, offering spells to prevent stings and bites from various dangerous snakes like Apep, Ririk, and Apshate.
Lots of snakes in the underworld, apparently.
Seems so. And in a rather specific case, Chapter XL provides protection against a serpent targeting a donkey called Driving Back the Eater of the Ass.
Wow, they thought of everything. That attention to detail for every potential threat, no matter how specific, is incredible. And simply knowing the names of these creatures or places isn't enough, is it? You need to know the proper incantations, the passwords of the underworld.
Precisely. This is a critical concept. Chapters CXLV and CXL6 detail the pylons, and Chapter CXA7 describes the Arit, the various gates and portals of the underworld.
Gates and portals.
Yes, heavily guarded entries. To gain passage, the deceased needed to know the specific, often fantastical names of their doorkeepers, watchers, and heralds.
And these names were complicated.
Incredibly complex sometimes, like Sekhet Krashtaru or Etek Takaharkaru. But knowing and uttering them correctly was essential. It was the key.
So knowing the right words was power.
Absolutely. This underscores a profound Egyptian belief in the power of knowing and uttering the correct words of magical power, that language itself held intrinsic power to compel reality. Hika, the concept of magic or authoritative utterance.
Hoka. So the power of words, the power of ritual, and the power of physical protection through amulets. It seems magic was interwoven into absolutely every aspect of this journey, not just as a belief, but as a practical tool.
Yes, the belief in the efficacy of words of magical power was absolutely foundational. It was rooted in the ancient idea that creation itself came into being through Thoth, interpreting the deity's will, and manifesting it through spoken word.
So words created reality.
In their view, yes. These words, whether spoken aloud in ritual or inscribed on papyri and amulets, were seen as having a very real, tangible impact on the spiritual and physical realms.
And the amulets were tied to specific spells.
Often, yes. Amulets were incredibly important. frequently linked to specific chapters, and placed directly on the mummy to confer specific protections. For instance, chapter XXB prescribed a scarab or heart amulet, typically inscribed on green basalt.
The heart scarab.
Exactly. Thousands of these have been found, placed over the heart, specifically intended to protect it from those who are thought to steal away the hearts of the dead. This practice dates back to the 4th dynasty.
That early. So the heart scarab was basically a magical failsafe for the judgment, a protective charm for your conscience.
In a sense, yes, ensuring the heart remained intact and protected from any malevolent forces that might interfere with the weighing.
What other amulets were common?
Well, chapter LX69 ensures the vital union of the soul with the body in the afterlife. Chapters CLV through CLIX cover various other amulets placed on the mummy, like the Uach amulet, a papyrus stalk symbol mentioned in C. Eliot. Chapter CLX was recited over figures to raise the deceased, or make them flexible, implying animation and full functionality in the afterlife. Chapter CLA2 was for making heat under head, a spell recited over a figure of a cow or placed under the deceased's headrest.
Heat under the head, what for?
It's thought to symbolize warmth, vitality, perhaps even enlightenment or consciousness for the deceased in the tomb. Chapter CLA2 was recited over a 3-headed, epiphallic figure of the goddess Mut, painted on linen signifying potent protection and transformation.
Epiphallic meaning erect, symbolizing fertility and power.
Exactly. And chapter CXL was recited over an Uchat, the Eye of Horus amulet, often made of lapis lazuli or gold-plated make stone for general protection and to enable the deceased's rising in the underworld.
The Eye of Horus, a very powerful symbol of protection and healing.
Indeed. And it sounds like some of these rituals were incredibly elaborate, truly a performance. They certainly were. Chapter C6XC7, for example, involved reciting spells over specific clay bricks with figures like the Tet Pillar, a symbol of stability, or Anubis, which were then placed in the tomb walls to repel enemies.
Like magical wards.
Precisely. Deemed an exceedingly great mystery of Amentet, the land of the dead. Then there's the pivotal ceremony of opening the mouth from chapter 23.
Ah, yes, you mentioned Hunefer's papyrus showed this beautifully. What happened in this ritual?
This crucial ritual was performed by the Sem priest using specific instruments like an az to symbolically open the mouth of the deceased statue or even the mummy itself.
Why open the mouth?
To thereby grant them the vital power to speak, eat, drink, and move, to be fully alive and functional in the afterlife, the text states, "May Ta open my mouth, may Thoth loose the bandages, may my mouth be opened by Shu with his iron knife."
Restoring all the senses and functions.
Exactly. Chapter Su Eli even details the necessary libations or ritual pourings to be performed as part of the funerary rites.
This blend of grand moral statements, a meticulous judgment, and powerful, almost literal magic truly challenges our modern categories of beliefs, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
It suggests a world where ritual and intention had a very tangible impact on reality, not just a symbolic one.
Completely. The Westcar Papyrus, that collection of magical tales our sources refer to, really illustrates this deep-seated belief in practical magic.
Remind us of those stories.
We hear of a sage able to reattach a decapitated goose's head with magical words, that wax crocodile turning into a huge living one to punish adultery, then shrinking back when picked up, even wax soldiers or ships animated by magical formula to destroy enemies.
Real belief in practical spellcasting.
Undeniably. Moreover, many rubrics, the instructional notes in the Book of the Dead, emphasize the profound secrecy of these rituals.
Why the secrecy?
They were considered exceedingly great mysteries, which no man whatever knoweth, to be performed only by the deceased's father or son, or thine own self alone. This highlights the sacred, perhaps even dangerous power they believed these texts and rituals truly held.
Wow, so this wasn't just a guide. It was a comprehensive manual for cosmic power and protection, ensuring every advantage. If you successfully navigated all those dangers, faced down your judgment, and made it through, what was the ultimate destination? What did the Egyptian paradise actually look like?
For the ancient Egyptians, paradise was envisioned as Sekhet Aru, or Sekhet Hetep,
Which translates to?
commonly translated as the Elysian Fields, or Fields of Reeds, Fields of Peace. It wasn't conceptualized as some ethereal, cloud-filled realm, but rather as a blissful homestead or farm.
Like an ideal farm.
Pretty much. The texts describe it as a fertile land intersected with canals, a veritable counterpart of the Egypt which he knew and loved, but perfected and without hardship.
So, like the Nile Valley, but better.
Exactly. This deeply agricultural nature underscores that the very idea of this paradise originated with a nation of agriculturists. The deceased would even pray for the sweet breath of the north wind, a clear desire for the pleasant, familiar conditions of their homeland.
So a perfect, idealized version of home, filled with all the comforts of an abundant life. What would daily life be like there? Would it be a passive existence, just resting?
Far from it. Daily life in paradise, as described vividly in Chapter CX, was vibrant and active. The deceased wasn't just resting, they were thriving.
Doing what?
They aspired to a life where they could declare, may I plow therein, may I reap therein, may I fight therein, may I make love therein, may my words be mighty therein, may I never be in a state of servitude therein, but may I have authority therein.
Wow. Plowing, reaping, fighting, making love sounds very active indeed. And having authority, not being a servant.
It's a powerful assertion of continued agency, productivity, and power. Even amusements were provided, mirroring earthly ones, like snaring feathered fowl and sailing in a boat, maybe catching fish or dealing with mythical creatures like worms and serpents as a sort of sport.
Like eternal leisure activities.
Kind of, yes. The papyrus of Ani even depicts Ani being introduced to the gods of Sekhet Hetep by Thoth, smoothing his way into this idyllic existence.
That's a very active, almost aspirational vision of eternity.
Well,
What about loved ones? Was there a reunion with friends and family? That's something many people hope for.
yes, and unlike some ancient beliefs where the dead might lose their individuality or connections, Egyptian texts do confirm the profound power to recognize and reunite with friends and family.
That's wonderful. Where do we see that?
From Chapter CX, the deceased declares, I have entered into thee, and I have seen the Osiris my father, and I have identified my mother.
So, recognizing his parents.
Clearly. Chapter 52 further reinforces this emotional connection. May the persons of my father and my mother be given unto me as guardians of my door and for the ordering of my territory.
Guardians of his afterlife estate almost.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? There's even visual evidence, like the papyrus of Anhai, showing the deceased conversing peacefully with her father and mother in the afterlife.
So an active, comfortable, and reunited existence. It sounds quite unique compared to other ancient cosmologies we might be familiar with.
It is, notably so. What's not present in the Egyptian afterlife concepts is quite telling and highlights its distinctiveness.
What's missing?
Well, there's no classification of angels like cherubim or seraphim, no elaborate celestial hierarchy akin to those found in Semitic nations, nor a grand celestial city like that described in the Apocalypse of St. John.
So none of that structured heavenly court.
No. It highlights the distinct, perhaps more earthly-rooted and cyclical nature of Egyptian cosmology, which was very much connected to their understanding of the fertile Nile Valley and its eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth.
And the journey didn't necessarily end with the Elysian Fields, did it? There was still a larger cosmic journey, joining the gods themselves.
Indeed. The deceased would often aspire to join the sun god Ra in his boat, sailing across the sky in the Lake of Ka, or Lake of Kenset.
Sailing with Ra.
Yes. The sky itself was sometimes conceived, perhaps in earlier strata of belief, as a large, flat, or vaulted iron surface supported upon 4 pillars.
An iron sky. Interesting. How did they get up there?
Reaching the celestial realm might even require a physical ladder, as seen in the pyramid text of King Pepi. Homage to thee, O ladder of the god, homage to thee, O ladder of Set.
Ladder to heaven.
Literally. The deceased would transform to fly like a feathered fowl or alight like a beetle onto Ra's boat, indicating a remarkable fluidity of form and movement, participating directly in the divine cosmic order.
That's a beautiful, almost poetic image of integration with the divine. But you mentioned earlier that these texts evolved over thousands of years, layers of belief building upon each other. Were there any really archaic or perhaps even shocking elements that survived from earlier, more primal beliefs, sitting alongside these more refined ideas?
This is where it gets really interesting and quite jarring, even for us today. There's an intriguing, almost shocking passage from the pyramid text of King Unas.
Unas again, from the Old Kingdom.
Yes, specifically lines 496 and following. In this passage, the deceased king, having become a divine soul, literally devours his fathers and mothers, mankind, and even other gods.
Wait, he eats gods and his parents.
The text is quite graphic. It states he slays them, disembowels them, boils and consumes choice portions, and burns the rest.
Why would he do that?
To absorb their vital powers, their magic, their Heka, and all their attributes of everlasting life.
Whoa, that's a far cry from peaceful farming in the field of reeds. That's cannibalistic and terrifying.
It absolutely is. This passage is widely acknowledged in our sources as a trace of a savage custom, reminiscent of ancient primal practices, like eating parts of a defeated foe to acquire their strength or powers.
Something that must have died out in practice long before Unis's time, surely.
Almost certainly. It's a practice that must have long disappeared in reality, but was, remarkably, retained in a text filled with sublime thoughts and ideas.
That juxtaposition is stunning.
It really is. This powerful contrast of agricultural bliss, joyful reunion with family, and a king literally devouring gods really highlights the layering of different historical beliefs within the Book of the Dead.
It shows it's not one single coherent system, but a collection over time.
Exactly. It's a potent reminder that these texts are not a monolithic work, but a rich tapestry woven over thousands of years, preserving very ancient, even primal concepts alongside far more refined and comforting theological ones. It shows us the incredible dynamism of their religious thought over time.
That really underscores the complexity of interpreting these ancient documents and the deep timeline they represent. Let's zoom in now on a few specific chapters that truly embody the spirit and purpose of the Book of the Dead, providing some of those key insights we've been talking about. What stands out as particularly illustrative?
Okay. Well, one of the most telling and practical chapters is chapter 6. This focuses on the Shabtai figure.
Ah, the little figurines they put in tombs.
That's them. This spell details their very purpose, making the Shabti figure to do work for a man in the underworld.
What kind of work?
The text explicitly states the labor they perform: sowing fields, filling watercourses, and bringing sands from east to west, essentially taking on the deceased's mundane agricultural tasks.
So you wouldn't have to do farm work in paradise.
That was the idea. The figure's prescribed response, when called upon by the deceased, is simple yet powerful. Verily, I am here and will do it. It's like a magical contract for perpetual service.
So the Egyptians believed they could literally outsource their afterlife chores to magical stand-ins, ensuring their eternal comfort. That's quite a practical application of magic.
Precisely. This speaks volumes about the Egyptian desire for ease and continued status, even in the afterlife. It wasn't about endless toil. It was about continued enjoyment and influence, with the more mundane tasks handled by these magical proxy figures.
Eternal leisure ensured by magic.
A very pragmatic form of supernatural assistance.
That's quite clever, actually, and very reflective of their values. What about a chapter that delves into the deeper philosophical aspects of existence and rebirth?
For a profound philosophical statement, we can turn to chapter 64. It's sometimes titled Knowing the Chapters of Coming Forth by Day in a Single Chapter, but it contains deeper ideas, often summarized by the theme yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Okay, what does it say?
It contains the truly remarkable declaration from the deceased. I am yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and I have the power to be born a second time.
Mastery over time itself.
Exactly. This chapter speaks directly to the deceased's mastery over time and the powerful concept of rebirth, that core cyclical theme of existence in the Egyptian worldview. It further elevates the individual,
How so?
describing the deceased as a divine hidden soul who created the gods, imbuing them with cosmic creative power themselves.
That's a powerful affirmation of eternal existence and even creative power. Incredible. And what about one of the most fundamental human fears? The fear of physical decay. Did the Book of the Dead address that directly?
It did very powerfully in chapter C50, titled Not Letting the Body Perish.
A very direct title.
It is. This chapter directly confronts the universal fear of bodily decay and emphasizes the strong desire for eternal physical integrity, ensuring the physical body, remains intact for the other spiritual elements.
What does the deceased say in this chapter?
They make a poignant plea. Homage to thee, O my divine father Osiris. Let not my body become worms, but deliver me as thou didst deliver thyself. I pray thee, let me not fall into rottenness.
A direct appeal to Osiris, the resurrected god.
Yes. And the affirmation then follows. A bold declaration against dissolution. I shall not decay, I shall not rot, I shall not putrefy, I shall not turn into worms. I am the god Khepera, the scarab god of rebirth, and my members shall have an everlasting existence. I shall not see corruption before the eye of the god Shu, god of air.
A defiant stand against the ultimate physical end. That's a very visceral fear and a very strong counter-declaration, showing their fierce desire for continued existence.
Absolutely. It shows how central preservation was, not just physically, but conceptually.
Were there any later additions to this vast corpus of text that continued this theme of eternal life and vitality, something maybe from those later periods you mentioned?
Yes, a notable later development is the Book of Breathings. This text emerged later, around 300 BC, during the Greco-Roman period.
So much later than the pyramid texts or even the main Theban papyri.
Considerably later, yes. It was often inscribed on very small papyri and would be placed in cavities within Osiris figures, those often made of wood or bronze that became common.
And what was its promise?
Its key promise was to ensure the soul breathes forever, symbolizing continued vitality and life. It also proclaimed that the deceased's form is renewed with life upon earth, a complex idea, and that they are made divine along with the souls of the gods.
Breathing forever. A powerful image of life.
Very much so. It explicitly states, "Amen is nigh unto thee to make thee to live again," emphasizing a renewed vitality and a lasting, intimate connection to the divine. It reflects the continuous evolution and adaptation of these funerary texts right through Egyptian history.
Today we set out to understand the rich, complex tapestry of beliefs contained within the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or maybe better, the Book of Coming Forth by Day.
That's a better way to think of it, yes.
From the intricate, multi-layered structure of the human self to the perilous journey through the underworld and the blissful active existence in the field of reeds.
And this deep dive has shown us, I hope, that this ancient collection is far more than a simple funerary text. It's a profound window into a civilization's deepest hopes, fears, and understandings of existence, power, morality, and eternity.
And constantly adapting and evolving over thousands of years.
Exactly. A testament to the enduring human quest for what comes next.
As we've seen, the Egyptians took extraordinary, even magical measures to ensure an abundant and powerful afterlife, meticulously preparing to preserve their names and bodies against decay and ensuring they could continue to wield influence and enjoy, or essentially, perfected earthly pleasures.
They left nothing to chance, if they could help it.
Which raises an important question for you, our listener. If our understanding of the self and our aspirations for what comes after death are constantly evolving, just as Egypt's did over millennia, how might future generations look back at our own modern practices and beliefs about preparing for the end of life?
That's a fascinating thought.
What might they find surprisingly similar or perhaps radically different about our aspirations for what comes next?